Does anybody else know the song? That can somewhat carry the tune.
I have a problem. I can something sing in German something, aber ich habe why the melody now. So I cannot the lyrics sing in the melody. It's hard. Wenn ich hier bereit ist, wenn ich hier ist, dann ich can sing it.
Honey, I'm sorry. I need subtitles for what you just said.
I had learned German.
You brought your translator with you.
I had es for ein German heard for a long time, aber jetzt habe ich never had English. It's, I don't know, I think it's loud.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, we're going to do the English version. And don't everybody leave me stranded here singing this, okay? On three, we're going to do this. 1, 2, 3. Hello world is the song that we're singing. Come on, everybody. Come on, get happy. Ladies and gentlemen, from KCOK 102.5 FM, Mr. Danny Bonaduce from the Partridge Family and his co-host Sarah. Give it up for Danny! And give it up for Sarah!
Thank you. I'm Danny from KCOK. This is my partner in the morning, Sarah.
I can't believe you ran up here.
What?
I can't believe you ran up here.
Well, because
I didn't want to jiggle.
Well, I started doing show business before you were born, and by the way, some of us would have preferred if you jiggled. But if they go, Danny Bonaduce, and you're still back there, people go, oh, he's in jail again, it's not good.
Good point.
So, I'm in fact Danny Bonaduce. This is Sarah Lee Mornings on KCOK 102.5. And it is our privilege and honor to be up here tonight. Someone I personally have a bond with. My television brother and the person we are going to interview tonight have both been kicked off Celebrity Apprentice. I, for one, am still bitter at Donald Trump, and we'll see if our next guest is here. Ladies and gentlemen, Gorge Tekai. You know, I would think I have covered a couple of comicons in my day, and when I see people running around, especially a guy in your position, because to be honest, I mean, it might exist without you, but it isn't what it is without somebody from Star Trek. And Gorge Tekai is in fact Star Trek to a lot of people. Would you agree?
And thank you for that applause, but you know, I wouldn't be Gorge Tekai without all of you. It's your dedication to the show and to all the various generations of Star Trek that's made Star Trek into this incredible 46-year-old phenomenon. So thank you all for all your support and undying love.
Let me just say this, without you, I'm talking myself. So now we're all cool. Now, Gorge, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to open up the floor to questions. So I'm a bit nervous. It's been a long time since I've been nervous. You put a microphone in my hand, I'm comfortable.
Yes,
but here's what I want to make sure you do. I'm a huge fan of yours, and I want to make sure not to use up any of the questions that these lovely young people might have for you. But you have been in sci-fi, much like the country song go, I was in the country before country was cool. You were into sci-fi decades before Star Trek, were you not?
Well, to be frank, I read that people like Ray Bradbury,
sure,
but I wouldn't say I was into sci-fi.
Then who was it that dubbed the voices in the 50s in Rodan? Still one for Bonaduce right there.
Yes, I did do the English dubbing on this Japanese movie, Rodan. And then there was another one that...
Big that Rodan, you guys. Talk about your comicon. This is Captain Kirk with a twinkle of his mother's eye.
And another movie, Japanese sci-fi movie that I dubbed into English, they later called Godzilla. So, in that sense, I was involved with sci-fi back then.
Now, did you actually translate from Japanese into English or just dub?
I did not do the translating. We had writers who did the translating, and we did the dubbing. However, some of the translations that the writers gave us didn't work. It wouldn't fit the lit movie.
Well, that to tell you the truth, that has not changed.
No.
I like Sanders a great deal, and it makes us sound a little closer than we actually are. But I'm relatively good friends with Jackie Chan. And this is now 2012, and I'll still see Jackie's movies, and I'll see better than our kung fu. So they haven't really tracked up with that kind of dubbing, but now it's 2012. Did you ever suspect that you would still be adored by these, legions of fans? If I'm not mistaken, you have 1.3 million friends on Facebook?
Believe it, it's amazing. But you know, when I first started with the pilot of Star Trek, we knew we had a quality show. The writing was all there. The ideas were all there. And I was chatting with Jimmy Doohan, and I said, I smell quality with this show. It is going to be a show that we're going to be proud of.
Jimmy Doohan would play Scotty.
So, Jimmy Doohan. But then I added on, I don't think we'll last too long. Good shows don't last on television.
Which would explain why the Partridge Family was on longer than Star Trek.
Yes.
Good shows don't last that long. But it was a brilliant show. Let me ask you, and I think we should turn it right over to the audience. For 46 years of success, wouldn't you think mathematically you would have had to have bigger success? Star Trek by today's standards, forget the audience numbers because there's so many channels, but by today's standards, Star Trek was not a hit.
No, it wasn't. At the beginning of each episode, we announced that we were boldly going on a 5-year mission. Well, we met Klingons, we met Andorians, all sorts of adversaries, but we didn't think that those adversaries would overcome us. What we didn't know was that we had adversaries called NBC programming executives. They aborted us after 3 seasons.
So it did run 3 seasons. Can you imagine? We're all here 46 years later for a show I would think most of us could probably still do dialogue from. And it was only on 3 seasons. We could quote the show, and most of us a little bit better than Shatner. That's just a personal opinion. No big deal. Don't get upset with me. But, and I'm going to turn it over right over to you. Do you think there's any truth to the curse that nobody that had a fake foreign accent on the show went on to the success of the people who did not have Jimmy Doohan, who played Scotty, and the man who played Chekhov, has not had the kind of success that the other characters on Star Trek have had.
Well, particularly Jimmy. He's no longer with us.
That's depending on how you look at things, that's either a big win and a big loss. All right, who's got a question for Gorge Tekai? It's fairly dark, so you should make your presence known by screaming, bursting into flames, whatever you'd like to do.
While we wait for a question, George, how do you feel about the latest Star Trek renditions?
The J.J. Abrams movies. I thought it was a terrific movie. I mean, it really had pace and rhythm and action, and it had to be done with a younger cast. All that running that they did in the corridors, I can't imagine Bill Shatner running.
Same basis for stunts. Emergency size, go. Yes, your question over here.
I have 2 questions regarding Allegiance.
Yes.
So first of all, did you...
Where are you?
I'm over here.
Oh, there you are.
Yes. So did you write it? And 2, are you singing in it? If you are, can you sing us something?
Well, it began in a prophetic way. When Brad and I are in New York, we're in the theater almost every night. We are theater buffs. We're dedicated theater buffs. And one night, there are kindred souls here. One night, we got to the theater kind of early. We sat down and we were talking about the play that we had seen the night before. And there were 2 guys sitting in front of us. And one of them recognized my voice. He turned around and said, "You're George Tekai, aren't you?" And we, chit-chatted for a while, and then the play began, and during the intermission, we chatted some more. We thought they were nice guys, very friendly. The next night, we went to see In the Heights, a musical about the Puerto Ricans in New York, living in Washington Heights. And we arrived at the theater. This time the theater was fairly full, but again, not in front of us, but in the same row that we were in, were those two same guys, about 4 or 5 seats away from us. And these seats were occupied, so we just kind of waved to them. And we said, what a coincidence. The same guys, 2 nights in a row. And then the play began. And if you know the play, near the end of the first act, the father has a song called Inuti, or Useless. He wanted to do so much for his daughter, but because of the economic conditions and some of the barriers that Puerto Ricans face in New York, he couldn't do all that he wanted to do for the daughter that he loved so much. And he sings the song Useless. And for some odd reason, that reminded me of the time that we were in the Arkansas internment camp during the Second World War. And it reminded me of my father, who wanted to do so much for us, for the kids, myself, my younger brother, and my baby sister. And it got to be so much that I'm a softie of tearjerkers. I started to cry. And then wouldn't you know, the act would end and the lights would immediately come on blazing and the intermission would start. And I was, wiping my face when the 2 guys came over to chit-chat, and they saw me, wiping the tears off my face. And he said, why did that song strike you so profoundly? And I told him about the internment camp. And the guy who recognized my voice the night before, an Asian American, Jay Kuo is his name, said, the story of the internment sounds like something that would be important to do as a drama on the stage. And I said, well, I'm planning on writing the last part of the first third of my autobiography as a television drama. He said, no, it'd make a great musical. And it turned out he was a composer lyricist. And so we chatted just briefly during the intermission. And then, the second act began. We went back to our seats. But after the play, we went out for drinks together and we talked about it some more. And he was very persuasive. It turns out he's a composer lyricist who had a musical on in San Francisco at that time. And we talked about the idea of doing a story on the internment as a musical. And so we decided to meet the following night for dinner instead of going to the theater. And we talked about it some more. And we got really excited about that idea. But those 2 guys were from San Francisco, we're from Los Angeles. We went back. But I started an email correspondence with Jay, and we sketched out a drama. And then about 2 weeks later, he sent a song over the internet. I mean, I'm of the radio generation, and I'm still astounded by all that can be done online. And the song that he sent over was titled Allegiance, and it was about the father wanting to do so much for his children in an internment camp. And there I was, seated at my computer, bawling away again. And it really affected me. And so from that, we started developing it. And the other guy happens to be a writer as well. And so he and Jay collaborated in the writing. I gave them guidance on the factual stories of the events of the internment. The story is fictional. We didn't. I was too young to really understand the events as a 5-year-old
I
child.
just was reading about this because I find the Derek is a very interesting part of American history. But in an article you recently did, you said when I would run off from my camp to use the latrine at night, I thought it was very nice of the soldiers to light my way. And you had no idea because you were only 5. They were just making sure you didn't escape.
Right.
Now, when you go to talk about, and the question was about a musical George Tekai is writing about, called Allegiance, about his youth spent, his very early youth spent in an internment camp. Do you think you can take a topic that is, in my opinion, not only dark, but a fairly shameful time in American history, and make it into a musical and have people standing up and cheer? And the second part of that question is, I just wanted to tell you this. 2 guys meeting up with 2 guys in a musical theater a couple nights in a row, not big of a coincidence. So do you think
I maintain it was prophetic. It was prophecy. Somebody was pulling the strings for us to meet together.
We have more questions on this side of the room.
Well,
Is
you
that
asked
right?
us something about the dark story.
Yeah, do you
He made it into a musical.
think you can make that into people leaving the theater going, I mean, obviously you can make it into people thinking, that was an amazing night out. The
Well,
musical
let
kind
me
of
cite
shows-
a few examples. Les Miserables, great Broadway hit, is about the French Revolution. Oppressed people, being subjugated to horrors of the French government and the revolution. That's a dark story. Let me cite another example. Miss Saigon, about the Vietnam War. Let me cite an even darker story. Sweeney Todd. A murderous barber who slits the throat of his customers and then sells the body to his neighbor lady, who's the baker, who bakes the meat of those people into meat pies, and they become very popular in London. They sell like meat pies.
And you guys thought that the one from Hunger Games was going to be the gory battle. All right, now let's go for a question over here. And by the way, it's more than sufficient answer on that question. Thank you very much. Question over here, please.
Hi. I was wondering, going back to your Japanese roots, do you ever get to speak Japanese nowadays? Does your husband get to speak Japanese with you?
My husband is terrible with languages. I sometimes have to teach him some English words.
So you try to teach him?
I've taught him some Japanese words, and when he's in Japan, he tries to use them, but he always gets into horrible trouble. So what I did was I decided I'm going to teach him a phrase that will already get him into trouble from the beginning. So I taught him the Japanese phrase, boku wa baka. Some of you understand.
For some reason, you told your husband to say that he was stupid.
You understand Japanese too.
私は日本語悪い、but okay.
わかりますか？素晴らしいですね。すごい。
That's 2 for the Nucci.
Well, I have a friend of mine who served as the Secretary of Transportation in the Bush administration named Norm Mineta. That's a Japanese name. But people think he's Italian. When the Italian Prime Minister was visiting the White House, Norm got invited to the state dinner, and they thought he was an Italian until he showed up.
Do we have a question for Mr. Tekai over here? Tekai, rather, over here.
Takei.
Hello.
But Danny, I don't object to Takai, because that's a legitimate Japanese word, if you know.
Yes, it is expensive.
It means expensive. You can loan me that anytime, and I'll send you a bill.
Let's get back to Mr. Tekai.
Which doesn't mean cheap either.
So I have been very greatly enjoying your presence on the internet in the last several years. Specifically, much of your work for LGBT rights and calling douchebags who need to be called douchebags. Because let me tell you, just the clip of you saying you're a douchebag gets sent to so many people. But we felt, my boyfriend and I, although we are not GLBT, we are very supportive, we felt that your message of it's okay to be Takei could be said in a more fabulous manner. So to that end, we made you this sash.
George Tekai a sash?
It says it's okay to be Takei.
Look at this. Wow.
It's also printed accidentally in Washington State University colors. The clasp is magnetic, so you can open it and close it again. Anyway, so if you ever want to come to a Huskies game and be supportive of Takei rights, your session.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Supportive of Tekai rights. There's important and there's really important.
Well, you know how this all began.
No, and I'm dying to hear.
There is, in Tennessee, a politician named Stacey Canfield, who is, ridiculously homophobic. He introduced a bill which the state senate passed, which criminalizes the use of the word gay by school teachers, of all people. School teachers are the ones that most need words to help young people who are starting to feel certain things in their body and their system. And, they need to be able to give them some counseling and guidance. And the word gay is a necessary word to use. But to criminalize them and put teachers that use the word gay into jail for a week is outrageous. And so I said, well, if the word gay is going to be criminalized, then they can use a word that rhymes with gay as a substitute. My last name is pronounced Takei, which rhymes with gay. So I said, then when you need to use the word gay, just say the word Takei, like marching in a Takei pride parade. They are ridiculous, and they're so easy to lampoon, these Tennessee politicians. However, it passed the Senate, and now it's being debated in the lower house, and the governor, God knows what a Tennessee governor would do, but he could sign it. So we want to nip it in the bud before it does that. So we want to make fools, really absolute fools out of these Tennessee politicians and ridicule them to death.
Our governor, in all her infinite wisdom, said that gay marriage is not only cool, but legal. So that,
I don't have a sash, but
you know what? I have like 3. Just don't tell my friends.
I'm a fan of all of your work, and definitely with your work with LGBT rights. But actually, the one thing I tell any of my friends who are on Facebook is to start following Gorge Tekai, because it'll be the best decision they make all year.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to ask you. If all the posts you do, some of which are about, important issues, but many are just awesomely hilarious, if they are all ones like you do or someone else helps you also, and if they are yours, like how much time you spend on that, what's the process and everything, because there's a lot of posts and they're all really good.
Well, the thing is, I have so many wonderful, funny people who send me cartoons and jokes and ideas. So we get to pick and choose from the wonderful ideas that we get, or cartoons that we get sent, or photos that we get sent. And Brad and I were doing it, but now it's become a tsunami of suggestions and submissions from people. So we've had to take on a couple of interns to help us as well. But what we do is we stockpile them and we put them out in drips and drabs daily. And so some days, you know, like while we're here in Seattle, you know, the ones that we've stockpiled are what's being put out in drips and drabs. So it creates the illusion that we are working hard, putting in 10 hours a day, every day, and I'm sorry that I have to shatter that illusion.
I have a quick question for you, George, and that is, you have become one of, and boy, you are a brilliant strategist, or just the luckiest guy in the world, one of the two, and in this business, it's best to be both, but I'm of the impression, if you listen to my voice, I can do no impressions. People, much like you said, somebody recognized my voice. I can yell for my wife or one of my kids, and I can hear somebody in aisle 12 go, I think I just heard Danny Bonaduce. But the other day, I was kidding around, and I said, oh. And everyone went, hey, that's George Tekai. That's George Tekai. So apparently I can do one impression, and it's you. And the question is, did you even start that, or did somebody else start that about you, and you picked it up, the oh my?
I've been saying oh my all my life, you know. And when I started appearing on the Howard Stern show, occasionally, you know, he would say some outrageous things. Howard saying outrageous things? Imagine that. And the only way you can respond to those statements were, oh my. And he had it on tape. And so even when I'm not there, he plays it. He says something outrageous, and he presses the button, and it plays, oh my. And so Howard Stern is the man who made it my signature, not me. I just say it all the time. But he's the one that made it a broadcast phenomenon.
I guess that you and I both have something in common. We both have to thank Howard Stern a little bit for helping out in our careers. A very good friend of mine. Even though for a while we were competitors, I never once didn't say thank you to the guy that got the ball rolling. And as long as you're gracious, he's a pretty cool guy to deal with, isn't he? Cool. A question over here for Mr. Tekai.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you have some really fantastic branding. I don't know a lot of people that would spurn this room to be filled, or some of my friends are actually walking around with the Tekai Pride Parade banner, actually.
Awesome!
I was just going to say, you've done some endorsements before, like Touch of Color televisions. Do you get approached for a lot of promotions? Are there any that you turned down?
There are many that we turned down, but one that has been very successful and remunerative, I did 2 years ago. It's called Sharp Television. And if you saw that, I borrowed from Howard Stern, and it ends when I see this picture of Sharp's Quattro on TV. I am amazed, astounded, and blown away, and I say, oh my.
Can we look forward to any more Star Trek movies in the future?
As a matter of fact, as we speak, they are filming right now. I think they're into their 3rd month of filming. And that Star Trek movie, the 12th Star Trek movie, will be released in May of... Have to wait another month. Another year.
Another year. And
Have you ever been approached about making a cameo in any of these, or would you like to?
The cameo in that movie?
In the new ones that are coming
well, Leonard made a cameo in the first one, and I thought they would include the still living one of us in the subsequent ones, but I think they made a policy decision. They're going to try to get away from that confusion and the story track, you know, of bringing an old, ancient Spock back. And so that they don't have any cameos from any of us in the next one. And from what I understand, should there be another J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, it will be without any of us.
well, I must say, all my personal feelings would be that's a mistake in judgment. But a lot of people come up.
I think you should be the producer of the next one.
Thank you. I'm not saying that because you're sitting right there, although it helps.
Of course, you are
But,
saying that.
no, I mean, like I said, I am a fan. I bet a bunch of people come to you all the time and say, Lieutenant Seward, and if I'm not mistaken, you were promoted to captain in 1993, were you not?
The only one of the regular cast who got a promotion to his own captaincy on his own ship that is bigger than the Enterprise.
From this side of the room.
Mr. Takei, first off, I'd like to say Baba Booey to you all.
Oh, thank you.
And,
Baba Booey, right back to you.
Thank you, sir. Two questions. One, can you say dry oatmeal and musculation? And secondly, when can we hear your wonderful voice and presence on the Howard Stern Show again?
Well, I think there should be an explanation for dry oatmeal. That show begins very early in the morning, and we have to report to the studio like at 5 o'clock a.m. in the morning. And so we get our breakfast there at the studio. The interns hand it to us as the show's running. And one morning, I always order oatmeal and fruit salad. And one morning, the oatmeal that was delivered to me was uncooked and no milk in it. But the show's going on, so you can't stop the show and ask for cooked regular oatmeal. And I was hungry, so I was munching on dry oatmeal. And it got caught in my throat, and I started to hack. And then Howard said, what's the matter with you? And all I could get out was, dry oatmeal. And he had that on tape, and so he kept playing that. So when Oh My dies away, the next signature is going to be and musculature, I always thought that word was pronounced musculature. I discovered from the know-it-all, Robin Quivers, that is pronounced musculature. But Howard liked musculature, and he's been repeating musculature every time the word comes up. He is an evil man.
I'll tell you this, George, I am one of Howard's biggest fans, but it sounds like he's just doing the George